Hi, welcome to our webcast of May 20, 2016. My name is Christian Debré, and this is Amy Asbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disability and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. Today's topics: news brief, update on Bill 6614, C14, not 6, C14, euthanasia and PTSD sexual abuse, and Toujours Vivant Not Dead Yet visit Senator in Ottawa, and it's not the hockey team.
Wait. Okay, thanks. Okay, the first news brief is we have an update on Bill C14. The House of Commons failed to approve a version of Bill C14 this week, and that's the assisted suicide euthanasia bill. And because Parliament is in recess next week, no action can be taken until May 30th at the earliest. And if you remember, there's a deadline of June 6th, and after that, the Carter decision will go into effect after June 6th.
And there is great risk that this June 6th deadline will not be respected.
Right. It looks like the deadline won't be met by the Parliament, and what happens then is that only the terms of the Carter decision will be in effect. So somebody wants assisted suicide, they only have to ask one doctor. It doesn't have to be a written request. There's, they don't have to be at the end of life.
There's no paper required.
No paper required. It's very loose. Very few safeguards.
Suicide for everybody.
Well, no.
Supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, the person does have to have a grievous and irremediable medical condition, but that could be virtually anything.
So both of us meet the requirement.
Right, exactly. The scheduled vote was missed on Wednesday after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau grabbed one member of Parliament and elbowed another member in an effort to speed up the process. This highly unusual behavior drew a lot of discussion and criticism and effectively put off the vote on the bill until after next week's break.
Yeah, and unusual is the less that we could tell about
right,
that.
Exactly. I was trying to be neutral.
It's kind of a very big scandal.
Right, it's a big scandal, and in the Canadian Parliament, people don't touch each other. People don't try to grab and push and pull each other. They just don't do that. So,
but in Japan and in Korea, I think there was fighting, fist fighting in the chamber.
Right, there's other parliaments, they do get physical, but not in Canada. So it's very everybody's very unhappy that he did that. Earlier this week, the Senate's Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee issued a report following its hearings on the bill. Most of the Senate committee's recommendations would tighten safeguards, such as by preventing heirs from filling out application forms on behalf of somebody who can't do it themselves. However, the committee did open the door to assisted suicide and euthanasia by advance directive. So it's good that they're tightening up the restrictions, but like by preventing people who could inherit from filling out the form for someone. But it's bad that they're leaving it open to advance directives.
Yes, it opened a very big door which it will be very difficult to close.
Right, because if somebody fills out an advance directive and then changes their mind and they're deemed incompetent and they have trouble communicating, it may be hard for them to communicate that they've changed their mind. And if they're deemed incompetent, And the fact that they've changed their mind might make it impossible for them to
change their mind.
to have their change their decision enacted. So,
And most people in front of the death, directly in front, change their mind.
right, a lot of people
Sometimes,
do.
often.
Right, right. Okay, the Senate committee would also add terminal illness to the definition of a grievous and irremediable medical condition and provide for conscience rights of refusal for both individuals and institutions. Both of those are good measures that we support. And
It is very important for institutions. Just think about the house for
the hospices.
no, the palliative care institute.
Yeah, that's a hospice.
Hospices. Okay, sorry. They have the mandate to not accelerate or decelerate the death. And if you impose them the obligation of kill people, you just kill the mandate, and they doesn't have any meaning to exist anymore.
Right, right, right. If they're forced to accelerate people's deaths, then that violates their principles. And also, it's important for people to have a place where they know they can go, and they won't have to worry about somebody deciding that they've asked for assisted suicide.
A lot of people want to be protected against themselves.
Right, exactly. I mean, I know that when I get depressed, I don't want somebody deciding that I just asked for assisted suicide. So I want a place that's safe like that. Meanwhile, an Alberta Court of Appeals issued a critique of the law when it rejected the Attorney General's appeal of a woman's request for assisted suicide. The woman, known as EF, has a psychosomatic illness that causes constant migraine headaches, blindness, and involuntary muscle spasms that cause constant pain and make her unable to digest food. So that's usually, we're talking about people with physical illnesses, and even though this problem has a physical manifestation, she's been diagnosed as having a psychological problem that causes these physical problems. And so that's why it's gone before the court. The Attorney General argued that the Supreme Court, in referring to end-of-life care in the Carter case, meant to restrict access to assisted suicide and euthanasia only to people who had a terminal illness, and to exclude people with purely psychological problems. So that was the argument that Attorney General made.
Yeah.
But the Alberta Appeals Court disagreed. They said the court in Carter meant for people with non-terminal disabilities and mental illness to have access to assisted suicide and euthanasia. The appeals court also implied that Bill C-14 could be found unconstitutional if it attempts to deprive these groups of access to assisted suicide and euthanasia.
Yeah, technically, if you create a group and try to isolate any group in the society, you create some kind of discrimination. And with the Charter of Right, it is an unconstitutional.
Right, and this is very bad news because right now the Attorney General is trying to pass a law that says the only people who are near the end of life get assisted suicide and euthanasia. And this court just said that they think that's unconstitutional. And so it's going to be harder to pass that law, and it means somebody's going to make a challenge to it right away.
Yes.
If it does pass.
So at the end, it could end, if we exaggerate just a little bit, it's suicide for everybody or suicide for nobody.
Right. Well, that would be sort of the ideal, but the only problem is that it's going to be suicide for people with disabilities, whether or not they have a terminal illness. And that's what we've wanted to avoid, because people have the idea that it's better to be dead than disabled. And that's what this country's policy is going to be all about. And if they have, the more people who have access to suicide, the less the country seems to want to follow a policy of preventing suicides. And that seems to be the case with this woman who's asking for assisted suicide in Alberta. She has a psychological problem, but she's asking for assisted suicide, and nobody seems to have stepped in to try to do any suicide prevention with her. Okay, so our next item is euthanasia for post-traumatic stress disorder and sexual abuse. This week, we learned of 2 cases in Holland where women were allowed euthanasia due to psychological problems caused by sexual abuse. In one case, a woman in her 20s was euthanized because she had anorexia and what was called incurable post-traumatic stress disorder. Another woman in her 40s was approved for euthanasia because of depression and PTSD that have left her physically and emotionally weakened. And basically, this is a situation, again, where it's an emotional, a psychological problem that the therapists have given up on her, basically decided that they can't do anything to help this lady, even though...
It's not logical.
Right.
A psychological sickness, if something is not known well in human body, is the psychological sickness of any kind.
Right.
And every day something changes in this subject.
Right.
So you kill somebody one day, the next day the same people, you will not kill it.
Right, exactly.
That's not the way to do.
Right.
You don't kill the victim because you want to kill the sickness.
Right, and also they're always coming up with new treatments for PTSD and survivors of child sexual abuse, and it's not right to kill somebody just because they don't respond to the standard sorts of treatments. And so it's really unfair that the psychologists have given up on these women and basically said, well, we think you'd be better off dead, which is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is TVNDY visits senators in Ottawa, and that's not the Ottawa Senators hockey team.
No.
This week, TVNDY went to Ottawa to visit with 2 senators to discuss Bill C-14. And this is after sending lots of emails and making lots of phone calls to try to visit with different senators. We got 2 invitations to visit senators out of that. And
which is a very low rate of success.
Right.
Which is not normal.
Right. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And
senators are senators for every Canadian.
Right, exactly. We met with Senator Tobias Enverga and Senator Don Plett to discuss amendments to the bill that could be presented in the Senate to strengthen protections for vulnerable persons. Both senators expressed strong opposition to assisted suicide and euthanasia. Senator Plett described amendments he intended to put forward during the Senate debate, and Senator Enverga encouraged us to continue to meet with his colleagues.
And they tried to help us to meet other people from Senate, other senators.
Right.
But it's very difficult. We as example, we phoned to a new senator, Miss Honorable Petitclerc, and just the day before, she was telling in radio casting things, I'm basically in favor of the C-14, but it doesn't have looked every aspect of this law. And we propose to give her the other aspect that she doesn't have yet looked at. And at the end, she refused to see us.
Yeah. And we understand that their schedules are very busy, but we also feel that it's important for the senators to look at both sides of the issue. So, okay, so our next item is an announcement. There's a rally on June 1st sponsored by the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition The Euthanasia Prevention Coalition and other groups are co-sponsoring a rally on Parliament Hill on June 1st from noon to 1:30 p.m. to voice opposition to assisted suicide and euthanasia, and to call on Parliament to ensure protections for vulnerable persons in any law regulating this practice. And we're hoping to get as many people out there as possible, because this is the last chance for people to voice their opposition to assisted suicide before the Senate makes its final declaration on the issue. And that's going to be on Wednesday, June 1st on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. For more information, contact the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition at 1-877-439-3348, and that's English only, or Living with Dignity at 438-931-1233. Those numbers again at EPC, it's 1-877-439-3348. And at Living with Dignity, it's 438-931-1233. So if you need more information about what we've talked about today, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet. And that's all one word. And we update our Facebook page every day. There's always new things on our Facebook page. And if you look at our website and go to the bottom of the first page of our website, you'll see our Facebook updates. Several of our updates come in, so you'll be able to see them there as well. And our website address is tvndy.ca. Also, you can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks for Christian for helping us out.
Thank you, Amy.
And thanks to you for being there.
See you next week.
Until next time.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.